One of the real surprise teams in 2013 was the San Diego Chargers. Everybody will sit there and talk about the Kansas City Chiefs and how much of a surprise they were. But I frankly think that the San Diego Chargers were a bigger surprise because nobody, and I emphasize again, nobody was really picking this team to make the playoffs, where there were actually other people, myself included, that were picking the Chiefs to at least make it to the wild card round. Nobody was picking the Chargers to make it to the playoffs, and they did. Uh, Props to Mike McCoy, props to Philip Rivers, props to offensive coordinator Ken Whisenhunt, props to everybody involved with the San Diego Chargers for making a run out of it last season. Not only just making a run out of it, but finding a way to get into the playoffs in Week 17. They got the benefit of a bad call and facing off against the Chiefs' second unit, but then they won a road playoff game against the Cincinnati Bengals and came this close to possibly even beating the Denver Broncos in the divisional round. So this is an organization again that has a lot of positive momentum and has to have a lot of good feelings heading into 2014. Um, the reason they were in that position last year is they have, over the past couple of years, drafted all right, especially with some of their early round selections. You look at Corey Liuget, from Illinois, their defensive lineman from a few years ago. He's played very well. Kendall Reyes has played very well. The 2013 draft provided a couple of impact players. The first round pick, DJ Fluker, really was an asset at right tackle. And then, of course, Keenan Allen, their third round pick out of Cal, was a steal. And again, an absolute steal. When you look at the misses for this organization and why they were kind of toiling in mediocrity the past couple of years, misses, you would say, after Legion, the rest of that 2011 draft class was just not very good, just really didn't produce that much. And in fact, it's kind of a little bit of a statistical anomaly to a degree, easy for me to say, that the Chargers made the playoffs in 2013, seeing as how the draft class from a couple of years before, 2011, was so poor, very poor. So it was actually a bit of a shocker. Again, looking at how poor that draft class performed from 2011, that's why a lot of people weren't picking this Chargers team to make the playoffs this past season. You know, guys like Brandon Taylor's been misses too. And then they still got some questions. Their first round pick from a couple of years ago, Melvin Ingram. You know, he's coming off of a knee injury. Really hasn't shown me that much when he has played. You know, they need him to step up and be an impact pass rusher in that 3-4 in 2014. Monte Teo, their second round pick out of Notre Dame last year, they need him to stay on the field healthy, and they need him to be that impact player in the middle of that defense that they envisioned when they did draft him in the second round last year. In terms of the Chargers in the draft this year, they've pretty much got just a standard draft, 7 picks, one in every round. But that's more than enough for them to be able to address their needs. And I think their draft strategy and their biggest needs all kind of fall in line. Their draft strategy ultimately has to be building up that defense to better stop teams like the Patriots and the Broncos in that AFC. That's what they have to do. Now, unfortunately for the Chargers, in a draft is similar to a team like my Bears, this is much more of an offensive draft as you go throughout in terms of the talent. Whereas defense, you know, after round one, you kind of start having to reach for guys a little bit, except maybe at the cornerback position. It's not, and maybe outside linebacker. You know, it's not the greatest defensive draft. So that's a bit of a problem for the San Diego Chargers. But in terms of their team needs, I say corner, is their number one need by a mile. In fact, I wouldn't be opposed to this team addressing that need with their first 2 picks, because this is a good class of corners here, and they need two of them. They need two starters. They really, truly do. They could use a better nose tackle on the inside. When you run that 3-4, everybody always emphasizes the outside linebackers in that scheme and their importance and their significance, and there's no question that there is a big-time importance and significance to those outside linebackers. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, you cannot run a 3-4 without a dominant nose tackle in the middle that can consistently eat up 2 blockers, that can make some plays in the backfield, and can be a real run stuffer, if anything else. You need that nose tackle, and I don't think the Chargers have it on their roster right now. It might be a position that they address in round one potentially, because it is that important. They could use another pass rusher on the outside. They could use somebody opposite Larry English, or they could sit there and use somebody to push Melvin Ingram, or they could use somebody just as another piece, another layer of depth as an outside linebacker, as a pass rusher in their 3-4. On the offensive side of the football, though, I think they still need more at wide receiver. They need some help on the interior of that offensive line. You might have Dunlap and Fluker at tackles right now, and that's okay, but you need some help on the interior of that line because you need to open up a little bit better holes in the running game more consistently, and you still need to make it a priority to protect your franchise quarterback while you still can in Phillip Rivers. The San Diego Chargers have this draft here to kind of build on the momentum of last year and build on the momentum, frankly, of the last draft that they had. I thought was pretty good. It was well done by Telesco and McCoy. Getting guys like Fluker and Teo and Keenan Allen's got to. When you see something like that and you're a Chargers fan, you got to be a little more optimistic about 2014 because you have some confidence after that last draft that the Chargers are going to do a good job of addressing needs by getting some value in steals as well and getting 3 or 4 guys that can contribute as rookies to this team and maybe making a little bit of more of a run in the AFC West. Will that happen? Remains to be seen. But again, things look up for the San Diego Chargers a lot more than I anticipated starting last year.